We can know that the scientifically minded, those who subscribe to our current models of physics, can never possibly conceive of a workable utopia for humanity. We can know this because our theoretical physicists do not even pretend to have a foundation for modern physics. Modern physics is based entirely on empirical observation, and we can know that empirical observation is not enough, because whatever the cause of the physical can be said to be, without doubt, it cannot be something that is already itself physical. The logic of this is inescapable, and empirical observation specifically excludes the study of anything but the physical. The scientifically minded cannot currently possibly conceive of a workable utopia for humanity, because modern science specifically blocks itself from identifying truth at the simplest level. And how shall one who is doing this achieve anything meaningful for humanity beyond advancements in engineering? A working, functioning utopia that is not built on truth is not at all a working, functioning utopia. We can know that any part of human culture that has not identified a foundation for itself cannot conceive of a workable utopia for humanity, because a real foundation is an understanding of the simplest truths of reality. And not one single subculture within human culture has ever achieved this, whether it be religious or non-religious. To have faith in one's chosen preferred ideology is essentially to say, I do not know and understand the simplest reasons for why and how it should be so, but I believe it is so. Those who have faith in God have faith in God as much as theoretical physicists have faith in empirical observation. And we have already discussed where that leads. To put it bluntly and simply, not knowing the simplest, most foundational truths of reality is not knowing the simplest, most foundational truths of reality. Whatever you come up with in this situation can only be a hack for not knowing the simplest, most foundational truths of reality. Human culture in its entirety is this. The situation is this. The humans of this world would greatly value a real working utopia. The human cultures of this world are entirely invested in their own furtherance, which means that the human cultures of this world are not in the least bit interested in achieving such a thing. In fact, they have an active investment in blocking such a thing from ever coming about. Humans want utopia. Human culture does not. That's really quite the situation for us all here, don't you think? What this means for us is that any real and workable utopia for humanity can only come from outside of existing human culture. And human culture would most certainly be resistant to it at the first sign of its appearance. So, what would this utopia be? What would it look like? Well, clearly enough, it would be one that was built upon a clear knowledge and understanding of the simplest, most fundamental, foundational truths of reality. Those truths that human culture has never identified throughout human history. Those truths that human culture resists being identified today. What are these truths? Existence does not exist because of blind energetic forces or because of a creator God. In order for either blind energetic forces or a creator God to exist, there would need to be a reason for them, a cause of them. And this reason for them, this cause of them, would need to be so fundamentally and foundationally simple and true in and of itself that it would be existentially incapable of not being true. When asking what is the cause of all things, the only way to avoid the question of and what caused this cause is to identify that which is so simple and true that it cannot conceivably ever not be true. Both religious and secular human cultures will claim that seeking to identify such fundamental truths of reality is a waste of time, because such understanding lies beyond human comprehension. But this claim doesn't make sense. That which is so simple and true, it can never not be true, can only be that which is simply and unbreakably true in every aspect of every moment of reality ever. Which means it must be both simple enough for a human to understand and also in clear evidence in every aspect of every moment that every human ever experiences. And in order to qualify as a cause of the physical, these foundational truths of reality must be, in and of themselves, non-physical. This actually gives us more than enough to identify what they must be. There are two non-physical truths that are in clear evidence in every aspect of every moment of existence, whether experienced from a human point of view or otherwise, which are so simple and fundamental that they cannot ever possibly not be true anywhere, ever. There are 3 spatial dimensions. One moment follows another. You cannot have a God or a Big Bang without first having somewhere to have them. And if one moment is not following another, then nothing ever happens, including some inexplicable thing that causes one moment to suddenly start following another. These truths are so fundamentally, unbreakably, inescapably true that their not being true is a thing that is literally impossible to even imagine. Please feel free to go ahead and try. A real and actual utopia would be based in and built upon a real understanding of the simplest truths of reality that never stop applying to reality. And none of our human culture recognizes these 2 foundational truths as being the foundational truths that they are. Now, I have no doubt that whoever you are listening to this, that if you have listened this far, you are able to understand what I have said so far. Whether you are ready, willing, and able to agree with it or not is not a question of your ability to understand what I have said, but your readiness or not to disagree with human culture, whichever flavour of human culture you most strongly identify with. Human culture is the most awful thing in the world. And it's not that I am looking to offend any of you. It's that human culture is an offence to all of us. I'm not singling out any single culture here, but I am including it, whichever one it may be. These 2 foundational truths that I've just been talking about, these 2 foundational truths that are so simple, clear, and obvious, and yet which human culture has a powerful aversion to because of its own investment in itself, they are only the beginning. I have made many videos about foundational truth, and I have built onwards from what I have just discussed. And I have done this as clearly and coherently as I have been clear and coherent in this video. I don't want to repeat in this video what I have already repeated so many times in others, because I want to get on and explain what a real utopia for humanity looks like. I will simply state here the foundational truths that I base this utopia on, and you can watch these videos, which are linked in the description below, for detail on why these truths can be understood to be reliably true. Here is the essential truth. You need to know so that my proposed utopia can make sense to you. Existence is entirely composed of eternal truth in living iteration. We are eternal truth in living iteration. There is nothing at all, that is not eternal truth in living iteration. As eternal truth in living iteration, we periodically enter into amnesia of our eternal past due to reasons concerning us expanding into higher orders of scale of being. This happens to us as individuals each time we are born into physical form again, and it happens to us as a collective for the very same reasons, but at the greater scale of the collective that we humans are as a species. And that is enough for you to know here, right now. Okay. Good. So, the utopia of the eternal. When the eternal is born here as the human species and has finally at long last, after what pretty much seems like an eternity, emerged from the amnesia of its own eternal nature that it periodically goes through. And, even more importantly right now, how we get there from here, where we are right now. Many of us believe, because of human culture, that when we die, we die. And that is it. End of story. While many of us believe, again, because of human culture, that when we die, we go to heaven or hell or purgatory or some such place. And that is it. End of story. There are some cultures that believe we reincarnate here again and again. Again and again until we get it right, so to speak. And once we have got it right, we don't have to come back again and can live in the eternal bliss we have always wanted for ourselves. There is no workable utopia the eternal can create for itself here in this beautiful world while it is believing any of these things, because, as I have said, a real utopia can only be one that is based in and built upon a foundation of actual truth. While we are trying to build utopia for ourselves, but do not know the truth of our own eternal nature, we are basically problem solving for the wrong problem. And the results of this are inevitably going to be problematic. And sure enough, if you care to look around yourself at our human world right now, it's really all so very awful. I mean, I really don't have the words to articulate just how hideous and awful it all is. From millions upon millions of people living lives of quiet desperation and loneliness, to people living lives of relentless ongoing struggle and poverty, to people living lives of outright torture and abuse. We lie to each other. We abandon each other. We are savagely cruel to each other. We lie to ourselves. We abandon ourselves. We are savagely cruel to ourselves. And we do all of this in so many ways, some that are deceptively subtle and willfully so, and some that are openly brutal and willfully so. And much of the cruelty we engage in is carried out by us while we are in a self-denial of it as even being cruel at all. And all of these kinds of behaviors are as familiar to one culture as they are to another, be it religious, scientific, spiritualist, occultist, capitalist, socialist, or whatever kind of ist you care to mention. So it's not much wonder that we either long for something better, something transcendent, or just take solace in the idea that it will at least come to an end at some point. The truth we need to know so that we can be problem solving for the correct problem is that we are not going to transcend this world, and it is not ever going to be over for us. If the thought of those words, possibly being true, fills you with dread, I can completely understand that. Of course I can. But it's okay. It's going to be okay. It really, really is going to be okay. I promise. We have done this countless times, and we always get through it. Always. Being the eternal, as we are, we literally can't help but get through it. We are truth in eternal expansion. And our own expansion is not a thing we can prevent, avoid, or deny. We can't decline the journey, only determine the quality of it for ourselves. We will be getting through it. So let's talk about the destination first, and then we can look at how we can choose for ourselves to go about getting there. So, our destination, we can call it Utopia, we can call it heaven, we can call it harmonic coherency, if we like. We can simply call it sanity, whatever we wish to call it, our destination is right here in this world, this remarkable, astounding world of contrasting qualities. This is the world we come to, where we experience the leading edge of our own expansion into greater and greater levels of being, higher and higher orders of scale, of resolution, of self-differentiation. Self-differentiation of the one single soul of existence. The one single soul that is my soul, your soul, their soul, everybody's soul. Existence, all existence, comes from the very same fixed past and expands outwards from that single shared past, that single shared soul, and outwards into the same single shared future, which is as yet to become fixed. And it does this for all eternity. Do you see how the words I speak do actually make sense, both in terms of physics and in terms of spirit? My words make sense because they make sense in terms of truth. And truth is the great common denominator of existence. That which is true is that which happens. And it is the only thing that happens anywhere, ever. Even when the truth is that we are lying to ourselves, to each other. The word God is a placeholder for the word truth, used by some during those times when it is not understood that it is truth and only truth that ever happens, ever is happening, because there are truths that are existentially incapable of not being true. And when this is understood, it becomes clear that there is no room or time or possibility for anything else, anywhere, ever, anything else at all. It is true that all existence everywhere shares the same past, the same present moment, and the same future. It is true that the present moment of all existence everywhere is born out of its own previous moments of existence. And this is true at all scales, no exceptions. It is true at the scale of an individual human being, and it is true at the scale of the human race as a collective. It is true at all greater scales, and it is true at all smaller scales. The truth of this is simple, simple, simple. The lived experience of this, here in time and space, is infinitely complex, because it is playing out at infinitely high resolutions of self-differentiation that are forever becoming even higher, and cannot help, therefore, but be filled with all manner of relativistic effects that cannot help but become mysterious to us, because of their being infinitely complex. But the highly complex and mysterious lived experience of it does not in any way alter the simple, simple, simple truth of it. Our greatest source of help, guidance, and grounding in the face of the infinitely complex mystery of the lived experience of existence, the literal ground beneath our feet in all of it, is our knowing, understanding, and remembering the absolutely simple truth of it all. The simple is not superseded by the complex. Both are present and unfolding simultaneously, coexisting in the same space at all times. The highly complex expression of absolutely simple truth can only be the highly complex expression of truth that it is because the simple truths are absolute, absolutely always present and in effect in all places at all times, and absolutely causing the highly complex expression of themselves. The simplest truths are the most forceful truths, the most unchanging truths, while the highly complex expressions of truth are those that are most subject to change. Our utopia, our harmonic coherency, our heaven on earth, comes from our understanding of this, our remembering it, and our making our choices in accordance with our understanding of this. Our current human culture does not understand this and has us making our choices from a place of problem solving for the wrong problem. Our religions have us problem solving for being sinners in the face of God's judgment. Our physicists have us problem solving for being momentary scraps of self-consciousness. And we are neither of these two things. We are eternal truth in living iteration. And this is the truth of ourselves we should always be remembering and making our choices for ourselves in accordance with. When we do this, when we are all doing this together, we no longer choose to lie to ourselves and each other in the desperate hope of gaining for ourselves what we can take from each other, whether it be material gain or some perceived spiritual gain. We no longer look to deceive and manipulate others by smiling to their faces and telling them we are their friend, even as we are trying to set them on fire. We do not do this. We do not do this to ourselves. We do not do this to others. And they do not do this to us. We tell the truth. We tell the truth to ourselves. We tell the truth to others. And they tell the truth to us. And this results in the utopia, the harmonic coherency, the heaven on earth we would all so very much like for ourselves. When we have more of something than we need, we say that we have more of that thing than we need, and then give that excess freely to somebody who does need it. When we do need something, we say that we need it. And if somebody is around who has it and does not need it themselves, they give their excess to us freely. When we are sure of something, we say that we are sure of it. When we know that we do not know something, we say that we know that we do not know. When we are uncertain of a thing, we say that we are uncertain. A real utopia, a true utopia, can only be based in and built upon real truth. And this is the only thing that can bring us the levels of actually feeling good about ourselves and our own existence that we all absolutely desire for ourselves. Each and every one of us desires this for themselves. But who amongst us right now can trust that they can receive this right now from the rest of the people in this world of human culture that preaches lie as truth? This world of human culture that tells us we are either sinners awaiting God's judgment or a passing thing that can only grab what it can for itself while it can, before it is no longer able to grab anything ever again. To see the truth in all I have said here is not a difficult thing to do. But how is one to hope and believe that we can, as the human collective that we are, reach these levels of truth together? These levels of truth that instill in us that sure and ready trust. Trust in ourselves, trust in each other. When it is human culture itself that will undoubtedly be resisting all of this truth in favour of its own furtherance. So this brings us to that question of how we get to there from where we all currently are right now. Well, my goodness, what could seem a more dauntingly impossible task than this right now? Human culture is absolutely fucking awful, and it protects its own furtherance with all its strength. When you most likely protect your aspect of human culture with all of your being, how shall it be that you won't look to protect it from somebody like me? It seems that eternal truth in living iteration really has its work cut out for itself here. Clearly, human culture is not simply going to hear and listen to some simple words of clear and obvious truth, see the errors of its ways, and concede gracefully. And if you are a passionate devotee of your religion, or your school of science, or of the occult tradition you belong to, or whatever aspect of human culture it is that you are a passionate devotee of, then you also are very unlikely to hear and listen to some simple words of clear and obvious truth. See the error of your ways and concede gracefully. If this is a fair and accurate description of you, then, for the time being at least, it is not you that will be helping humanity towards the heaven on earth that will come to mean so much to you once it is here. This transition is not going to be served by those who say, yes, human culture today is hideous and awful, all of it except for my bit of it. This transition will be served by those who are ready, willing, and able to say, human culture is hideous and awful. It hurts all of us, and I don't want to play in it any longer. If that is not you right now, then it is not you right now. And I do not judge you in the slightest for it not being you right now. We were all born into whatever it was that we were born into, and we have each lived through whatever it is that we have each lived through. But the rest of what I say truly is addressed to those of us here who are ready to accept and be honest about human culture being the terrible problem that it is for this world. Those of you that can hear the very simplest truths for what they are. So, what are we to do? What can we possibly do in this situation? Shall we start a revolution? Shall we form a movement, a cult of our own? Or shall we just start being truthful, kind, and generous to all those who are not yet able to be truthful, kind, and generous to us? What the fuck exactly are we supposed to do? Well, it's not the revolution option, and it's not the starting a cult of our own option. You probably understand already that this is not the way for us to go. So what about this being truthful, kind, and generous to all and sundry option, regardless of the majority of them continuing along the standard human cultural protocols of deception, manipulation, and all-out bullying? Well, nah. This is frankly just asking for trouble, for obvious reasons. But it is not entirely off the mark. what we do is we start being truthful, kind, and generous to ourself. We start being truthful, kind, and generous to ourself as best we may in any given moment. And we do not stop. This in itself, after all of these years of being immersed in human culture ourselves, is no small thing, no easy thing. It is a thing that takes time, takes practice, and frequently takes courage. And it takes compassion, forgiveness, and understanding. Compassion, forgiveness, and understanding for ourselves. In all the world, in all eternity, it is our very own self that is ever our greatest enemy and our greatest friend. Nobody anywhere can betray us as we can betray ourselves. And nobody anywhere can be the friend to us that we ourselves can be. This is what it is for us to be the eternal. Now, this may not sound like much right now. Not much in the context of this specific conversation, which is about utopia for all humanity, that I suggest you start being honest and generous with yourself and give yourself a break about not being perfect. But if you do start to do a good job of this, and like I say, it does take time and practice, if you do start to do a good job of this, it is plenty. It really is. You are not responsible for, cannot be responsible for, creating utopia here for everybody else. That would not be fair, would not be balanced, would not be possible for you, for me, or for anybody else. Your responsibility here is your self-responsibility. Your responsibility to yourself to create utopia here. For you. This is what it is for us to be the eternal. Yes, there are some practical and simple steps that humanity can take for itself when it is ready for all of us to really usher in our heaven on earth in a matter of just a few generations. And I will go over them in a moment. But for you as an individual, you must be walking in your own utopia before you can walk in any shared utopia. Because utopia can be all around you already, and yet if you are not walking in your own, it will not be utopia for you. If truth is the bedrock of utopia, because it is the bedrock of all existence, then self-honesty is the bedrock of your personal utopia. You be as honest with yourself as you can manage, and you keep being honest with yourself. In this way, you can be honest with yourself about what really matters to you in any given situation. And you can be honest with yourself about this in the face of the entire world telling you that you are a fool and that you are wrong. This is how you decline the many and varied invitations of human lie culture. This is how you keep yourself from betraying you. This is how you be your own greatest friend in eternity. This is what it is for us to be the eternal. As for trusting others, well, again, your self-honesty is vital here. If you want to give somebody a chance, then go ahead and give them a chance. It might have been Ernest Hemingway who said, "There's only one way to find out if you can trust someone. You have to trust them." If you want to give somebody a chance, then go ahead and be generous and give them a chance. And then be honest with yourself about what happens. Always, as best you may, be honest with yourself. You are the eternal, and you owe it to yourself. You owe it to yourself like you have never owed anything else before. And when you do actually find somebody that you can trust, you owe it to yourself to recognize and value that for the priceless gift that it is. Learn through self-honesty to walk in your own utopia, regardless of how much lie culture may be surrounding you. The rest of the world will catch up when it's ready. You can only do you. Okay. Good. So let's end this video with my suggestions for some simple practical steps that humanity as a whole can take when it's ready, whenever that may be, to usher in utopia for all humanity. I'll keep this super short and sweet. No more than a list of bullet points. And if you'd like more detail on them, you can view my video. To those of you who are watching and only watching, link in the description. I believe the following steps should get us a good, workable utopia for humanity up and running within a generation or two. Please feel free to take them, leave them, play with them as you like. 1. No witch hunts. 2. Abolish compulsory child education. 3. release our creative output into the public domain. Look after yourselves.